portrayed in the media.
I agree with that.
From
And
portraying
that's what I'm
it
saying.
like this, right?
Individually, I'm seeing that. That's what I'm saying. When I talk to my individual friends, and it's
Yep.
not always on camera, but we're really close. And one thing I'll share with them, based on my own history in the media world, is that what we understood from media is that if we get a message sequentially in front of someone 7 times, and that's a mythical number, but they start to believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same thing stands true if someone shares a meme from your tribe, whether it's actually, justifiable or not, or fact checked or not, isn't really that important. It's one of those things where you're like, well, I love this person and they sent me this meme and I agree with that. And by the way, I just put in a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
And I'm tired and now I have to cook dinner for my kids. And so I don't have time to do the homework. So I'm just going to believe this and that's fine. But then that starts to add up.
Yeah. Right.
So when you start to see, and again, there's a lot of nonsense on the left. We talked about some of it today. And there's obviously a lot of nonsense on the right. And so if you don't have the time to start to pull these pieces apart and you don't really understand how your brain works when you're fed information from people you love, and that all your friends believe this, and that when you go out to dinner or you go to a concert with these folks, they're all in the same camp. They all agree on the same pieces. That feels very nurturing. That feels very comforting.
We're hard. People couldn't develop the way we do from birth on without trusting the testimony of others, respected others, close others. We are programmed, we are wired to have a belief default in our brains. We tend to believe the people closest to us, whatever they say. And it takes something strong to dislodge the default setting. I've got to know a lot about Uncle Joe to stop believing stuff he tells me about politics if he's been a part of my life since I was a little kid, And so this is just kind of necessary for human growth and human society. The testimony of others is the basis for most of what we believe about everything. Our personal firsthand experience is so limited, especially when it comes to things like politics. So I've never met most of the people who are in the news, in the Senate, in the House. I've not met them. I've not seen in person what they do or what they're like. I just have to believe what I'm told, And so we constantly, as human beings, have to learn when to be believers and when to be skeptics and how to blend that properly in our lives. And wisdom is part of the answer to that. Growing in wisdom gives you this ability of discernment that is pretty rare these days when it comes to those who get platforms to comment on this stuff in public. The op-ed writers for the various newspapers, the featured folks on the various networks. They're not typically picked because of their wisdom. They're picked because of their knowledge of information, and they're picked because of maybe their appearance or their facility in language. But wisdom is not on the card to be checked off, and that's a real unfortunate aspect of a media culture, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because knowledge doesn't necessarily equate to wisdom.
No, not at all, right? You can know tons of facts, right?
Yes.
And you can have a hard disk for your mind that just it has millions of factoids at your fingertips without having any sense of discernment or perspective or balance or compassion. And wisdom involves all those things. It involves perspective and compassion. And most people don't understand that wisdom and love are deeply connected.